So when I asked AI, I think even the LLMs, and especially on the free models, could not compile your illustrious career in just one output. And similarly, the amazing illustrious things that Aditya has done in a short span of time. A huge round of applause. I am in August company. I am privileged to be here. Now, the session, sir, and the prompt was, is AI replacing humans, blah, blah, blah. We're going to talk about leadership, mentorship, policy, regulation, the serious stuff, the fun stuff. And remember this, Aditya is not media shy, but he'll always give us some great news. And CP, sir, will never shy away from a headline. So we're very glad that we could join you. CP, sir, when we're talking about mentorship in a way, actually, let's talk about that. Cultures, the sort of culture that you need in a top tech company. And AI coming in, saying digital transformation is not a luxury anymore. We talk about augmenting the existing workforce. We talk about AI replacing certain functions. You've transitioned from a top IT company now to an AI startup entrepreneur. Are you seeing things differently now?
Clearly, I would say that me and the 5 million software engineers in India are privileged. Privileged is because we are lucky that, for us to be efficient at our jobs, it has to be human plus AI, AI plus human. And if we don't use the tools, then anyway we are extinct. So it's wrong to assume that it's an opportunity only for the technology industry. I think it's a huge opportunity for every industry. That most of us have used these tools in our own way. The day, some of you started writing your reports on MS Word and started getting spelling guidance, you were using an AI. That 3 decades ago, when a chess game was won by the machine, you were using AI. It's just that exponential increase has now come in, and thanks to the generative AI, thanks to the conversational AI, now it has become, into the hands of every human being. So I think it is important that human beings realize that the world now is human beings plus AI. And if you're not going to adopt AI, you would be left behind.
I wasn't joking about the application for mentorship at the start. In a previous life, I was a lawyer. And a lot of people don't know that when Aditya is being introduced, he also started off as a lawyer, then did the miracles he did at Indigo, then Akasa, and now a bunch of other ventures. Whether it's a travel tech company, whether it's some of the stuff you're doing with the Vadvani Foundation, it's all AI for you as well. So do you agree with CP, sir, when he says it is human plus AI? There's no other way forward.
Yeah, so, just to pick it up from where CP left, right? Whether we call it augmented intelligence or whether we call it artificial intelligence or assisted intelligence, this has been around all the way from Deep Blue, defeating Garry Kasparov. But what has happened in the last few years is that it has become much more user-friendly. My analogy is that when I was in high school, the privileged boys would, I grew up in an all-boys school, privileged boys would go twice a week into this air-conditioned room, which was called the computer lab.
Yes.
And there used to be computers kept in an air-conditioned environment. Today, a 1.5-year-old starts playing with that iPad. Correct. So that intuitiveness. Similarly, what has happened in the last 3-4 years, especially with GPT-2, GPT-4o, is that it has now become, table stakes for everybody. You don't have to be a programmer today. You can literally go to ChatGPT 4o, put in the right kind of prompt, and it'll build up a code which you can then start, using in your development systems, whatever environment you might have. Next will be, where there'll be non-programmable, AI, right? So that ease of use where it will become horizontal, and therefore to agree with what CP is saying, neither is it going to be the fiefdom of tech companies, nor is it going to be something that will be some, secret that only a few people will know. It'll be across. It's happening today. Whether it is an airline, whether it is a real estate company trying to predict pricing, whether it is an airport trying to do demand forecasting, whether it is a healthcare company which is trying to predict the incidence of cancer, right? We are using artificial intelligence in one form or the other, whether it is ML, whether it is deep learning, we'll go into that debate later. It is all around, and therefore it'll be something that we are using. And to answer your question, yes, and at least, in the 4 or 5 things that I'm deeply involved in, we use this on a day-to-day basis. All the way from very simple sort of forecasting type of stuff to, like in our eVTOL business, we are using, very precision landing systems based on artificial intelligence, for instance.
Mr. Gurnani, it's interesting because I just want to give you guys some context in terms of how fast things move in the world of tech, specifically in the world of AI. 3 years ago when we met, we were talking about whether AI would replace humans. Then we met in Barcelona, the Mobile World Congress, and we spoke about AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. Today the conversation's already moved forward. It's ASI, it's Artificial Super Intelligence, when AI systems and LLMs become smarter than human beings. How do we really cope, Mr. Gurnani, more importantly, when the guardrails still aren't in place?
So, I'm going to actually put it differently. Since both of you claim to be lawyers and talk more technology, somebody has to talk English. So, think about it. What does a Microsoft call the agent that it puts alongside yours? It calls it a co-pilot. Why do you call it a co-pilot? Because it takes away some of your routine functions and frees up your bandwidth so that you can become more productive and you can become more efficient. Now, take this a step forward. When you start training your own tools to start, anticipating what your requirements are, then it starts becoming what we call as super smart agents. Now, the super smart agents, in my opinion, where we all are going right now, number one, the marriage between a human and the AI agent is going to be so much, more tailored around the domain that you are operating in. And we have seen these examples. I mean, what do you, when you come into the airport, when you see a Digi Yatra, what do you see out there? Do you see it as an exercise in computer vision? Or do you see it as one of the most complex systems where Homeland Security is involved, where an airline is involved, where an airport is involved, where an individual's data is involved, where ticketing is involved, and you're still able to seamlessly go across to your gate? Right. Now, just take a step forward. Today you come into the hotel, nobody recognizes you. Whereas hotels are supposed to be more personal, airlines are supposed to be, God save you. Now, the point I'm trying to make out here is the evolution of technology has just begun. And the moment it starts getting into the marriage of conversational AI, marriage of computer vision, marriage of generative AI, and number 4th, predictive AI, I think that is the time when we would have unleashed the real power of the human being.
How would you respond then to a lot of the detractors, especially of generative AI? I'm going to come to you as well, Aditya. When they say ChatGPT, Gen AI, all of this is a fad. It's a bandwagon that all corporates are trying to latch on to. And maybe it'll pass, like the blockchain, the crypto wave. Is that even a 1% possibility, sir?
So the good news is, with the crypto prices, it never passed. The good news is, blockchain is here to stay. And the third part is, I think generative AI is evolving even faster than you and I would like to believe. The fact is, data centers are going to use more power than your smart cities. The fact is, and the reason they're going to use it is because that much of usage has increased. The fact is also that generative AI, when we start talking 4.0, somebody is already talking 7.0. I mean, it's not the last funding round, you know what Sam Altman got. So it is very clear. And then you have to actually take into account what China is doing. You have to take into account what UAE is doing. UAE had their sovereign policy in 2017. They had an AI minister in 2017. In China, today, for the chat queries that you do, it costs 1/30th of what it costs for you to become a commercial user of ChatGPT. So all I'm trying to say is that best is yet to come.
Aditya, so then the detractors can completely be, dismissed when they say Silicon Valley to chali gayi, now it is Cerebral Valley in San Francisco. That is, big tech is now becoming big AI. Is that a fair assumption?
Look, when any new technology comes in, it is very natural for the hype to get a little bit ahead of what the reality may be. But having said that, I think as business leaders, which is where you started off from, we need to be able to quickly be able to distinguish the smoke screens from what the reality is. The reality is that artificial intelligence is not a fad. It is not something that just happened to fall from the sky in the last 4 or 5 years. It is something we are using today. Only thing that is happening is that it is becoming more prevalent. And that is, I know it's very dramatic to say this, but I think we are living in an amazingly magical time. It's like being born in the Industrial Revolution. Within our lifetime, we will see the world change. Right? Now, the impact that it will have, certain people's roles will change. Some people have to reskill. Some of these technologies will become cheaper. Computing will become faster. Moore's law last 60 years has shown that. And it'll be all around. Like, Digi Yatra today, like, people use it as if it's nothing. Like, as if it's your, walking through an X-ray machine. Right? Driverless cars are a reality. Pilotless, air travel will become a reality within the next decade, less than a decade, right? So, I think that we shouldn't, if I may say this, we shouldn't dignify them by calling them detractors. They're at best ostriches, with their head stuck in the sand. If you're thinking that, no, this is something that's just going to, pass over. It is all around us already. Right, so that's where I feel like I think we are past that stage where we should say bas ye nahi hoga, this is some fad. Bhai ho raha hai.
Mr. Gurnani, it's interesting because Aditya touched upon reskilling and upskilling. Now, that's important, right? Let's talk about, of course, all of us needing to embrace that AI wave.
By the way,
yes,
just so that the lawyer joke is on us also. In a company that I'm involved in, we are using AI today to dramatically reduce the legal spend, because we've now been able to train the model to look at certain, vast masses of contract where we don't have to wait for lawyers and large due diligence teams to go through it. It's happening today. So, glad that you and I are not dependent on legal fees for our living anymore.
Absolutely. It's all about data centers now. Mr. Gurnani, so really reskilling, upskilling, that's important. We're talking about us embracing the AI revolution. All of us sat in this room right now. What about the next generation? Shouldn't it be a part of school curricula? Shouldn't it be a part of, all the other things that we're doing? Aditya mentioned the computer lab, which was that, holy space that we went to where the air conditioning always worked. Floppy disk, Aditya, your time? Okay, so we're the same generation then. Yeah. But Mr. Gurnani, doesn't that mean that we need to really start from the ground up?
So first is, I think we need to take a few natural phenomena into account. Number one is there is no AI if there is no data. And for us, this data married with the AI tools and the machine learning is where you create the tools that enhance your productivity or efficiency. Now, I am a very firm believer that if India has to leapfrog, it will have to start repurposing all three factors. The all three factors is, does every department, does every organization, does every government department have a AI usage budget? Or is it become compulsory? Because till you make it mandatory, it's the same way computers at one point of time, got into the air-conditioned rooms, but now they have gone into mainstream. They are with, either through your smartphone or through your laptop, they are in everybody's hands. So for us to make the best use of AI, I think somewhere we will have to do a little bit of, induce it, little bit of inspiration, but every government department and every private company will have to start using it. The second part of it is, I think we have a fair amount of action. 200 private universities, IITs, and all have a lot of initiatives. And particularly IITs, I think they're doing a phenomenal job. But question now is, there is always this disparity between the public schools and the private schools. Mm-hmm. There's always this disparity between the rural and the urban. And I think with the connectivity now being what it is, mm-hmm. with the cost of smartphone that can be driven to 5,000 rupees, I think we should start introducing AI and prompt engineering, because that will accelerate the learning and that will probably bridge the gap between the various sections of the society. So yes, if I was the education minister, I would do it yesterday.
You see a few smiles in the audience. You touched upon something that I really want to talk about, and this is telepathy, sir. You're reading my questions before I ask them. The divide between India and Bharat. As tech companies grapple with how to really make it the next big thing, with the demographic dividend here in India, Aditya, is that really the way, given the organizations you've scaled in the past, the efficiencies you've brought into the aviation sector, now what you're doing in travel tech as well, do you think that is the secret sauce here in India? If a company wants to set up or do business here, really cracking the whole India versus Bharat paradigm?
Clearly, where we are being able, okay, yeah. So why is the divide there? A large part of the divide is because of traditional models of language, KYC requirements and things like that, right? Let's look at simple things like agriculture, education, financial inclusion, and healthcare. 4 areas. In all of these 4 areas, the government actually today has started using some kind of artificial intelligence, right? Whether it is in terms of advisory, there is this Kisan e-Mitra, and there are a bunch of things. There is oral communication that is being, simultaneously being translated into, a variety of languages. So whether it be for any public service, so, whether it is financial inclusion or healthcare or anything, or for that matter, like you were mentioning, a company to reach out to a larger customer base and a customer set, this will clearly leapfrog, the proverbial sort of laying the pipes to get to, where you want to get to. But what CP mentioned is what's going to hold us back, that if we do not invest public infrastructure or public spending, public-private spending in large data sets, in a language model that is, a large language model that is created in India, either we will get left behind or it will become too expensive for our citizens and our companies and our businesses over here to kind of do that. At least that's my view. There are a lot of people over here who are using those large language models today, but I don't think there'll be a point in time very soon where you will end up paying a lot of money for it and so on and so forth. And in any case, unless you have really massive data sets, you will not be able to train your models as well. So, CP might have a view on this.
Again, Aditya, I can only amplify what you just said. Most of us have been using a search utility. It could be Microsoft, it could be any other company. Now, the moment the search utility is combined with, and people started saying around that search utilities that the libraries will become extinct. Because you could do a fair amount of your research, you could read your books, or you could do whatever you wanted to, your newspapers, but the reality is that the hybrid model existed. Now take a step forward today. Now there are search utilities or the chat GPTs or the LLMs, the way you want to call them, have started becoming so sophisticated that they're not only allowing you to ask a question, but they're also giving you answers, anticipated answers, and context and various scenarios around it. So I think it is an evolution. And that's why this evolution, when it lands into the hands of everybody, it creates that equilibrium. So that's why I personally believe that for us as humans, that's what we started the conversation with, that instead of fighting that there is a new tool in town, we should fight it. My belief is we should embrace it. We should actually set ambitious targets for ourselves to adopt it. We should actually do courses on prompt engineering because it means asking the right questions will make you more efficient. So I think we just should amplify it.
It's interesting, just before we move on, a quick show of hands from the audience. How many of you all have used ChatGPT or Google Gemini or any such similar tool?
You should ask them who uses every day.
Okay, there Aditya's question. Who uses it every day?
Uses it every day in some form or the other.
Wow, that is a major majority, right?
And I'm pretty sure lots of companies have their MISs already plugged into some kind of, whether it's a co-pilot or something or other. See how many people are nodding their head.
Wow, okay. So this is the right audience. All the lovely social media companies that tell us about targeting, we know we're speaking to the right audience. But what's interesting over here is that, Mr. Gurnani, you were mentioning when you're typing it in and the AI really figuring out what the output's supposed to be like. One of the early Instagram developers and founders said that when they wanted to promote more activity on their social media, even when we were thinking of posting and we just had a photo in the library, they'd already uploaded it on their servers so that you got a seamless experience. And if you chose not to post it, it never showed up. You chose to post it, it was a matter of seconds, irrespective of bandwidth. But coming back to that point, Mr. Gurnani, we talk about the software, and that's really cool and swanky and glamorous. But what about the hardware when we talk about the AI revolution here in India especially? What about quantum compute? Jensen Huang was here a few weeks ago and he spoke to us and he told us about how his conversations with the establishment are all about why India should not only be exporting talent for AI, we should be manufacturing intelligence. Is that better said as a headline or is there a way to walk the talk, Mr. Gurnani?
So I'm going to first relate to what you started talking about Instagram and photos. We all read the same news. Australia banning social media for under 16. Now, if you ask an average, at least I asked my driver, how many reels does he see every day? His answer was maybe 200. Now, my point is the way content is being consumed has changed. My point is that we all saw OTT versus the theaters.
Yes.
We all started visualizing the way content will get created in future. I actually met one of the content producers. He said he's looking at creating a series of 2-minute films. And it will be like 50 films And I'm like thinking, I mean, it takes me, 2 minutes to say good morning and set the context. I mean, how do you create a series around 2-minute films? So my point again is the way we consume and the way we function, unless we correlate it to any offering that we make, I think we are missing something.
Okay.
Now, the second point,
Which was about India exporting talent for the tech revolution and now the AI revolution. But what about us really making this India, this beautiful country, a hub of that innovation?
I think again, it's a very beautiful point, and I think it's not an either-or situation. I think we all know that a car on the road today is about 500, 600 IoT or semiconductor devices. Because whether it's a tire pressure, whether it's an oil gauge, I mean, there are about 500 semiconductor devices. Similarly, if you look at the power that is there in a Tesla car, it is equivalent to a data center of yesterday. So it is very clear is that ultimate aim is for a user to be able to efficiently use the process or a system. So if an NVIDIA Jensen comes in and he says we should be exporting intelligence, all he's saying is, we have the hardware. If you guys build the use cases on top of it, then there are millions of use cases, right from traffic light management to the lawyer management and hopefully the 5 crore legal cases also. So there is a lot more use cases that are there. And if we continuously develop the domain LLM, if we continuously develop specific LLMs, I think India will be in a unique position. Sandeep has just walked in. Sandeep and I were talking. It is not going to be about only NVIDIA's GPUs. It has to be married with quantum computing because the need for data processing is increasing so much that it has to be hybrid. Because if we start anticipating all the content that we are creating, all the data that we are churning, we would need thousands of quant engineers. We will not only need just the AI use cases, and I think hardware and software will have to live together. Our advantage is software. Hence, yes, we should be focusing on intelligence.
Aditya, that's interesting. But if you're talking about hardware and software being together for this revolution, we have a little bit of time left. You've had a fantastic career, like I said, from law to aviation to what you're doing in travel tech, working with the government of India. Now, if you look at what AI is doing, and this is the biggest AI conference taking place here today, and we're all part of this occasion, what are the top 2 or 3 sectors where you think there will be tectonic shifts, disruptions because of AI here in India especially?
I'll try to answer that question slightly in a nuanced way. Sure. I think there'll be many sectors where this will be sort of prevalent, like before we even realize it'll be there. Whether it is customer segmentation for D2C companies and so on and so forth, whether it is better manufacturing, productivity, etc. From my world, I mean, Airbus, Boeing, especially in the last few years, where they were trying to, as they were coming out of the pandemic, they were trying to do demand forecasting and supply chain and so on and so forth to be able to, figure out how many airplanes they should be manufacturing to, better safety and so on and so forth. These things will happen. I think there will be, when you talk about tectonic shift, it will probably happen in industries which are otherwise a little bit hard to, for people to accept that change. For example, healthcare, right? I mean, even today, even the most sophisticated people will run to a doctor and not run to a machine, even though we all understand that the machine has been able to kind of look at data sets from like literally trillions of data sets to give you a solution. from my world, I think, like I said, today we can drop bombs which are, pilotless. But to carry one human being which is pilotless, we know the technology exists. We know it is reachable. But I think we're a little bit afraid of that, right? But the tectonic shift, I think, will happen in healthcare, education, financial inclusion, and dare I say, travel, because anything where there is a large amount of friction, because there are a lot of interchanges, a lot of interlinkages. I think artificial intelligence allows you, and I'm using that in the kind of broadest sense of the word, allows you to make it a more and more frictionless frictionless journey, and that's where that tectonic shift will happen.
Mr. Gurnani, since Aditya mentioned a bunch of sectors out there, very quickly, we have very limited time, but I'm bowling you a slow ball here. So I need one headline at least. And the reason I ask you that is, doesn't that become very important? Why should we be scared? Not of AI, of AGI, or ASI, artificial superintelligence. A lot of the questions that need to be answered in the sectors that Aditya mentioned could probably come out of AGI or ASI.
I mean, how do you create headlines when you 100% agree? So all I can tell you.
CP Gurnani agrees with Aditya Ghosh is a big headline.
Yeah. There you go.
So I think from my perspective, there is only thing I can request everyone is that it's like when we had a VCR, we didn't know how to use anything other than the play and the record buttons. Similarly, all the cell phones we have, we don't know how to use all the features. With AI, don't make that mistake. It's a good tool. Please use it. Please take advantage of what it has to offer.
Please take advantage of what this panel has to offer and embracing the AI revolution. A huge round of applause. Put your hands together for Aditya Ghosh and CP Gurnani. I'm hoping our application for mentorship has been successful.